Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Our Day's News. You can't see the writing here, I'm afraid, but we have it, Our Day's News, end of year conference, where we will sum up some of the developments of this year, and what a year it has been. It's quite an astounding year. I'm sure most of us would agree. Now, in theory, there are going to be 3 sessions. Session number 1 will consider what's happening in Northern Europe, and particularly Baltic states. And we are delighted to welcome Ulla Pulk, member of the KUS party of Estonia, Tartu, Estonia. Oleg Ivanov, leader of the KUS party, Estonia. And Professor Zlatko Hadziedic, the founder and director of the Center of Nationalism Studies in Sarajevo, Bosnia. Session 2 will be European security concerned, specifically focusing on the crisis or the wars in Ukraine and the Palestinian-Israeli war. And we'll be welcoming Hichem Lihamitzi, geopolitical analyst, secretary of the GIPRI, Geneva Institute for Peace Research, Geneva International Peace Research Institute in Geneva, Switzerland, Tiberio Graziani, chairman of the Vision and Global Trends International Institute for Global Analysis in Italy, Lily Org, senior researcher in Geneva, Diana De Silva, researcher in Brussels, Kome Capontier, distinguished fellow of the India Foundation, convener of the editorial board of the World Affairs France-India Foundation. Batko Slaviša Malecic, journalist and political analyst from Serbia and Montenegro. And in session 3, the New World Order. Not their New World Order, not the Klaus Schwab New World Order. Hopefully there will be another New World Order, which is forming now. And what will it be like in the context of development of the Global South? Lorenzo Somaleghi will be taking part, senior researcher from Bologna, Italy. Patricia Huber, University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences in Vienna, Austria. Elsasen Suleimane, journalist from Mali. Dr. Adama Diabate, a geopolitical scientist from Mali, and Vitaly Taisev, journalist of Information Agency African Initiative in Mali. So, without further ado, I will go back to the Zoom page. I hope you can all see and hear me still. And we will start by discussing recent events in the Baltic states. In particular, we actually have news from all 3 Baltic states at the moment, but in particular, rather disturbing news just some days ago. Estonian anti-racist and ethnic Estonian Alan Handsome has been arrested and detained in Estonia. We don't know yet for how long. I'm hoping maybe some of you can fill in the details. He was planning to move to Russia, because more and more people in Estonia who are working and campaigning for an anti-racist, who are campaigning against discrimination of Russian speakers, ethnic Russians, and other peoples from the former USSR in Baltic states in general, are having more and more problems. It really does seem as if Baltic states is descending into a kind of mini kind of 1984 dystopia. Does anyone have any news about the latest on Alan Handsome? Is there any chance he's going to be released? Do we know what the charges are? I was looking for this last night and I couldn't find up-to-date information. Does anyone want to jump in here?
Well, I'll say hello to everyone. My name is Ila, and I represent here the Estonian Voice. And I feel very honored to be with part of such group where people come together and we are concerned about what's going on in the world, in Europe, and in particular in these regions that seem to be always historically to be most affected by political power shifts that are happening. And also to put their heads together and see things objectively and practically and not ideologically. And I joined our political organization cause that I represent, which means together, just recently. My background is not politician. I was born in Estonia and raised in Estonia by two different grandparents in addition to my mother. So I was really rooted with these Estonian traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in South, the Estonian nationality and practicing ethnical, cultural rituals was perhaps more common than in northern part. And I also had the privilege to spend many years in the United States as well. And my background is in alternative medicine, and also I've been an entrepreneur and educator. And now it seems to become a political activist because, as you mentioned, 1984, I have been reading 1984 and as well as Brave New World, So I see what's going on in current world, almost like in a hybrid between the 1984 and Brave New World. And so, what can we do? And everything starts with conversations and people coming together and saying that this is not okay. The direction we are going is going to disaster. And, for all these regions, Baltics, Poland, Finland, that happen to be, geopolitically in this particular location where we finally learn from the history and learn to stay neutral and be that part of the world that instead of creating more conflict is bringing peace together, bringing heart together, bringing conversations together. Because we have to start solving problems with conflicts and by killing each other, it's just so barbaric. And I can't believe that we are back in that ages, like dark ages. We're now supposed to take pride of the evolution of the humanity, and it's not there. So,
I sympathize with you here. I mean, as a Western European, I'm a British citizen. I grew up in Great Britain, though I've lived in many other countries since. We kind of, maybe nonchalantly, maybe even arrogantly thought that period was kind of over, that we were not going to have world wars anymore. We were not going to have European countries fighting each other anymore. And we were not going to have exploitative empires anymore either. Obviously, I only woke up to the fact I was wrong, that they have other ideas literally in the end of 2013, 2014, when I saw what they were doing in Kiev and the Western reaction to the reunification of Crimea with Russia. I knew this story from the inside for many decades before, and I couldn't shut up and I couldn't close my eyes.
Well, I am basically in that point now because, like I said, I've been in a completely different sector in my, like a healer, educator, entrepreneur, and now I'm finding myself more being entangled because I see it's already crossing the line. I wasn't really paying attention before what the politicians do. You live, I live, we don't really clash. But now it has come to the point where we are clashing because I see that dynamic or balance between a society and an individual being completely out of balance. I feel that now the government is coming too deeply already into my business. Where I'm starting to ask myself, like, okay, who am I? Who do I belong? Who I need to synchronize my thoughts with? Like, I have to now live in the ages in Estonia where you gotta be concerned again. Are you politically correct? I never thought in my wildest dreams that this is gonna happen again. Estonians have chosen sides again. We have been selling ourselves for political ideology. Like, we just didn't learn. like we just, which is really sad, because what I wanted to get to, the reason why I am now part of this organization is because it's the only organization in Estonia that's actually promoting peace, and that rooted into any type of a ideology except of let's stay good human beings, and let's do business together.
Sure.
Like that, it's all comes down to let's get along, let's know where our boundaries are, and know our identity, which we don't. And that's actually the most important part about why this conflict is affecting Estonia really tragically, is because my concern is about the disappearance of the Estonians as a nationality. People don't realize how small Estonia is. And our total population is only 1.3 million people. And I think 30-40% is already like another nationality. So basically, there's less than 1 million Estonians alive. And if you're going to have this war environment, our birth rate already was minus 5,600. So there ain't going to be any Estonians left. And that's a serious problem that our government is absolutely not addressing, that we're going to just die out very soon.
So the irony is, in fact, that nationalistic Estonian policies promulgated also by the rulers of the EU are actually damaging the Estonian future, Estonian nationality, Estonian identity. Is this what you're saying?
Yes, totally. The current direction of our government is completely destructive towards the survival of our Estonian nation and culture.
Okay.
So, and that's a big problem. We should be coming under protection of some organization. Please protect us from our government.
Okay, may I ask you a question just for context? Because you said you were born in Estonia. Maybe you were born in the Soviet Union, actually.
Yes, I was born in Soviet Union. I was born in 1973.
Okay.
So I was born in the era, I grew up, I say I already had this, what they're promoting. I had nothing, but I was happy.
Okay.
I had a very good childhood because in that era, in 70s, 80s, the political narrative was already more relaxed. Nobody really, shoveled it in your face with the fear of going to prison. So I was lucky to be in a very tail end of Soviet regime. My grandparents, they did suffer greatly. My grandparents, they were in a prison because they were kulaks, because they had a farm that was 30 hectares, and it was called Fourth Farm. And they were put into prison because they had Estonian flag. But the point was that they had just too much land, and the neighbor wanted the cow, I guess.
Okay. Well, yes, okay, I know these kind of stories. And what I wanted to ask was, did you feel when you were growing up in the USSR that the Estonian language was oppressed or crushed or put aside? Did you feel Estonian people were discriminated against in some way?
Yeah. I right now I do feel that our language is kind of disappearing. And Estonians, of course, really want to put the blame on the Russians. Oh my God, there's so much Russian-speaking people in Tallinn, but it's a Russian language. It's an English language too. These services that we have, Bolt and Volt, and they all basically built up on a foreign labor that doesn't speak Estonian. And I would say that the Estonians have not done enough themselves, actually, to hold on to our own identity, to invest, perhaps instead of having these pretty harsh language exams to get into citizenship, instead perhaps maybe to bring the knowledge of the language and tie it together with the job, where there is mandatory that all open public sector is able to communicate in Estonian as well. So if you the finances with the language, like I lived in United States. I mean, I have get along in a society without knowing the language, but if I wanted to make an income, I better learn language.
Okay. Do we have anybody else on this topic immediately? Oleg Ivanov, are you with us yet? Hello. I have to say, in case anyone, I'm only seeing one person at a time on the screen, so I don't have the overall picture. I'm just seeing, now I'm not seeing anybody. Well, let's continue this conversation because, this gentleman, Alan Hansen, has been arrested 2 days before he was planning to move to Russia. Yeah. Now, I know now a whole load of Estonians who have come to Russia to be free. I have interested in Russia. It's just destiny. I don't know why. Just fascinated by it since earliest childhood. As soon as I knew in South London that there was such a country in the world. At that time, it was called the Soviet Union. But of course, historically, Russia was kind of the main country of this world. I was interested in it. I traveled to the Soviet Union 4 times. The last time was just before the end. The other 3 times were in kind of still deep communism, if you like, kind of Brezhnev style. There were pluses and minuses for sure. But it seems to me the Soviet Union was set up as an anti-Russian construct. And immediately in the early years, in every other republic, which in those days, of course, didn't include the Baltic states. In 1920s and 30s, Baltic states lived independently from the Soviet Union. They had been in the Russian Empire. I'm not sure for how many centuries, but I think your life was quite comfortable in the Russian Empire.
Yes, I mean, Estonia has been under the influence of many different great European, Scandinavian cultures. And because we have to come in terms with the size of it, just so few of us, and collectively we have not really evolved into that threshold to learn how to really self-organize ourselves, because you need this amount of populations. And what's really interesting that what is Estonia or our culture? The Estonians are farmers by heart. The whole Estonian culture, who we Estonians were farmers with the connection with the land and the earth. And that period when Estonia was independent between the since 1918 till the Second World War, Estonia had a structure of farmers, like my great-grandparents' farm, where the farms had 30 hectares, 40 hectares, 60 hectares, 20 hectares. These were little enterprises. So Estonia was basically, economically, was the farming, was what was feeding us and giving us the strength to actually survive these power shifts, because people went to the woods or the farms were feeding this. But now the farming in Estonia and basically the country life is kind of disappearing. So talking about what it means to be Estonian, being an Estonian citizen, like yes, everybody needs to have a proper human rights here. But another part of it is what it means to preserve the Estonian mentality, the culture, the way of living, which is rooted in the agriculture and the farming. And that's why it's so hard to organize Estonians, because our golden age, when every Estonian, whoever bothered to work, had its own establishment, their own kingdom. Like when you're busy, like you live in the most perfect lifestyle. You work for yourself, so every farmer was its own independent little king. And that's all the Estonians are so stubborn, because we have that, We had our land. We didn't really want to bother ruling anybody else. We were just, like hobbits, busy cultivating, and then we wanted to go to sauna, drink a beer, and dance and sing, and that's it. That's Estonians. But now the lifestyle that gave us our soul and spirit is basically being ripped away from the country.
Okay. And who do you think is responsible for this? Do you blame the Western world, or do you blame the Soviet Union, or Russia, or do you blame yourselves? You've already said that once or twice that Estonians, in your opinion, are not doing enough to protect their own culture. I know I'm responsible, but I'd like to hear your point of view.
I believe in, first of all, when you're not happy with something, you always have to ask from yourself, like, okay, where we have gone wrong. Because if you don't have that skill of self-analysis, then you can never improve. And it seems to me that because Estonians are repetitively now, we fell right into the same trap that we were so passionately running away from. We joined their ideology. Of course, I understand that the European Union is supposed to be, in the beginning, to be a financial organization, right? To do business together. But now it has changed its colors very much.
Yes.
And I believe in balance. I believe always in the balance that, yes, the world is evolving, and it's evolving sometimes. We don't know if it's evolving in the right way or wrong way, or it's going to backwards. I think this is right now the area where humans are really to figure out what does it mean to be a human, because it seems we are creating different hybrid, so to say, the next generation. That doesn't know the era that there used to be a time without computers and technology. Like, I know that era, the way I grew up and, my generation.
Okay.
So I do believe Estonians need to be responsible and really right now think about it, who we are, what's important, what are our priorities, and do we really care to exist? I mean, these are important questions right now that the Estonians need to ask, but our government is not even addressing that we are on the way to become distinct.
Before I get to one smaller question, I'd like to make an observation I'm going to throw out to everyone who's listening here because, it seems we've all heard about the Great Reset. Yeah, Klaus Schwab wrote the book, they've made the videos. This seems to be being promoted by the main governments of the Western world, above all, of course, that of the United States and the leaders of the European Union, many of whom nobody votes for, of course, like Ursula von der Leyen, for example. So what's the idea of this? Most people will be forced off the land and made to live in smart cities and controlled. You will have to ask permission from the government to travel somewhere else, to travel more than 15 minutes outside your home. You will have everything you need to buy food, have your hair cut, get some shoes and socks and so on in your little 15 minutes, and you will stay there and you will eat what they tell you to eat. Now, this is not my idea of a great future, and of what you've said, it's certainly not yours. However, it seems to me this is nothing new. When the Soviet Union was formed, that's what they did. They forced everybody off the land. They destroyed the peasant class of Russia, which, contrary to a lot of propaganda, not only Soviet propaganda, the propaganda we learned at school and so on and from television about Imperial Russia, the Russian Revolution, etc., was pretty much identical to Soviet propaganda. There was like lie, same lie, same lie, same lie, same lie, same lie, same lie, different finishing paper on the top. Yeah, we were told Russia was a backward, primitive country where everybody was a slave, like a kind of owned serf, as we had in the 13th and 12th centuries. And with the Magna Carta, we got rid of this. Russia is so backward that it couldn't. But actually, nothing can be further from the truth. Most Russian so-called peasants were property-owning businesses. They were not owned by the state. Peter the Great enforced that on quite a lot of farmers in Western Russia during his rule. Catherine the Great continued it a bit, and this was undone systematically by the last three Tsars. So they forced in the east of the Urals, 100% of the farmers were property-owning businesses. They were working for themselves. 7 in Western Russia were too. I guess that statistic also includes territories like Finland, Baltic states, part of Poland, which were all part of Russia at the time. My research goes back even further, that something very similar happened 1,000 years ago. After the Great Schism, the Pope of Rome, the new Pope of Rome that had created a new version of Christianity with him as the all-powerful head of it, he started invading one country after another and forcing them to adopt the new version of Catholicism instead of the Orthodox Catholicism that had existed for 1,000 years. First stop, England in 1066. Unfortunately, this invasion succeeded, and the new Catholics came in and forced the English population, then the Welsh, then the Scottish, and then the Irish, 100 years, to convert to this new religion, this new form of Christianity. But what they also did was nationalize all farming. It was now forbidden for anyone to make their own food. They gradually took over all the farms. They made a census, which is called the Domesday Book. And at school, we learned this was the beginning of the real England and then Great Britain. This was when order came. The 6th centuries where Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, came into the British Isles is called the Dark Ages. We don't study it. Nothing happened then, according to our education. So this is blatant propaganda. And also, they took over, they were counting their own newly conquered slaves, just like in the beginning of the Soviet Union, and just like they want to do now. So it seems there is some kind of force, some group of people clique throughout history whose ambition is to enslave most people and then farm us, which is what the Great Reset, it seems to have taken a knock back, because their first big try of this Great Reset was obviously COVID. Everyone was locked in their homes and so on and so forth. I don't know how it was in Estonia. In Russia, I know it was kind of 50-50, not too bad. Yeah? But in the Western world, most people found themselves prisoners in their own homes, totally restricted from travel and so on and so forth. So this is where we're heading. But I just want to put this context in for the whole following discussions also about Africa and in Western imperialism there and so on, because still a lot of people are kind of fighting the old fights, left versus right, communism versus fascism, and so on and so forth. I don't think we get any answers from that personally. Over to you.
Well, if I may say a comment about the 15 cities. As I said, the future is changing, and a new generation is also growing up. And I was thinking, as we know, a lot of, unfortunately, the younger generation, there's a pretty big percentage of younger population that's actually, when it comes to a real life functioning, they're pretty imbeciles, if I may say. And if let's say, I have 2 sons, 27 and 24. My older one graduated Harvard. He's right now in the army. Another one is an entrepreneur. So thank God they turned out to be pretty functional and able to handle like life difficulties. But many young people, they can't. They're having a panic attack if they, have to brush their teeth on time. So now let's say if you have a child who uses spoon feeding and who's addicted to technology and who's actually not really can't function itself. So I see that these 15-minute cities are basically geared towards that generation. It is like in an open prison, how parents drop their kids to the school, to the after school, and now they're going to start dropping their kids to these 15-minute cities, and they thank God, they can't go them, they can't hurt themselves, because we have raised a part of the population that now we need to actually manage them through and find them and make them somewhat productive, because they can do stuff behind the screen. And that's why I see that the societies are probably going to have to be balanced, that there could be in every country a one or one of those cities that can actually, for purpose, trying to keep the balance in the society and offer that generation also some type of a quality of living that they are used to. But, to make that the norm as an overall standard, of course, that's again little, too extreme.
Okay. Another trait of this movement, if you like, that we're seeing now is that they love getting people into debt. They love encouraging individuals to take more and more debt, and they love getting countries into debt. And as I understand it, Estonia has become a major debtor nation, whereas it used to be more or less debt-free.
Yes. I just heard our financial minister said that they now, after they had all these laws, we're going to increase the taxes. Now they're saying, I think it's going to be a little bit too tough. We're going to backpedal a little bit. We're going to drop some of the taxes, which means we have to now borrow more, like $2 billion or euros. So, yeah, I mean, Estonia is already strangled in every way. And in the meantime, they are investing to reinvent or reorganize the electrical structure, because right now Estonia stabilizes its electricity. It's connected to the east to stabilize the electricity. So now Estonians want to decouple from the Russian stabilizer and connect to European Union stabilizer by 2025 or even next year. So they have to build 3 different condensing structures, which is 60 million each, and they're going to do that in Latvia and Lithuania too. So that's where the money goes. Instead of already using what's working, there's going a lot of money to unplug from the east to plug to the west, and then maybe later unplug from the west and plug back to the east again. It's just really...
Ulla, do you know, have you got any idea really how many people, what percentage of Estonian adults actually still support this kind of idea? I understand why in 1991 the West looked very glittery and seductive compared to the Soviet Union, although Baltic states lived quite nicely. You had higher living standards than many parts of Russia and Kazakhstan and so on and so forth in those days. But now it just seems to me that surely people can see that they've been tricked, that their living standards are going down, prices of everything are going through the roof, and they're being used as pawns in the Western elite's war against Russia, in their plans to dismember Russia and break her up into 8 separate states. How many people are still... no one in Estonia can see this apart from you and a few others who are all fleeing to St. Petersburg, if I understand.
Well, the latest polls showed that I think it was 87% of the population, the prime minister to step back, which is unheard of. This is huge. So, and I do believe that right now Estonians are very confused because, as I said, in nature, Estonians are peace-loving. They don't want to get involved. They're more introvert. Don't really, but they're not conflict-seeking people, actually. And now a lot of Estonians are also victims of the constant media propaganda. And
Mhm.
the Estonian media, the news, it's just so uneducated.
Okay.
It's an insult to the intelligence when I read Estonian news, like the way they twist the word and they use narrative. I have been a hypnotherapist,
Uh-huh.
so I can recognize how there is a specific targeted manipulation with the collective subconscious mind,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
working really well.
Mhm.
And and a lot of people are just confused because they don't understand where the truth is.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people have been coming from, okay, let's trust the government. It hasn't been so bad. I'm sure these people know what they're doing at some point. And now this awakening call when they start to realize, you know what, it's amazing, but they are, they are really like dumb. Like they make the really dumb decisions. Not only decisions that are selfish and not, but they just make a dumb decisions, like things that don't make sense. Like for an
Mhm.
example, was like really ridiculous. Estonia, that where the weather is really harsh and difficult, and one of the most important things was whatever you do outside,
Mhm.
right? It's the wind, the rain, and they built in Estonia these bus stations that are not weatherproof, and now they have to rebuild them. So that's
Uh-huh.
how we have become. You
Uh-huh.
know, the Estonians, they build these bus stations and train stations without protection for wind and rain, right? But they
Okay.
were really blending in nice into the urban scenery.
Uh-huh.
So if we have lost already that level of common sense that our ancestors had, and thanks to that we survived, that's pretty bad, I would say.
Yeah. No, I could agree with you there for sure. I don't know about that personally, but the last time I was in Estonia must be at least 15 years ago, I think. It was possible when I was living in Russia to make visas there. Now it's not, unfortunately. But yeah, it just seems that Callas's father, for example, is mired in corruption scandals from even back in the 90s and so on and so forth. So many things just seem to be going wrong there. Is it still possible to speak Russian in public? Because in Latvia, as I understand, they recently passed a law actually making it impossible, making it illegal to speak the Russian language in a public place. Correct me
Oh,
if I'm wrong.
Latvians, they actually, I think they're going to send out export people out of the country who didn't pass the exam. Like, I think that the Latvians are really have gone insane. But I mean, Estonians, yes, it's pretty bad here, but not as bad. No, I would not say that the Estonians can't. I mean, yes, you can speak Russian. I personally have not, heard. Maybe there have been some isolated incidences, but in general,
Mm-hmm.
the Russian is freely spoken. Because now, since Estonians are really very big, big support to Ukraine, so we have
Yeah.
a lot of refugees, and a lot of refugees also speak Russian.
Mm-hmm.
So the Estonians, they can't figure out, is it the Russian, the Ukrainian? Though they better shut up and not make a comment.
And not to be outdone, of course, recent news from Lithuania, they want to invite the German army. They want
Oh,
to set,
yeah,
yeah, they set up
five
official German army bases in Lithuania. What for? You know.
exactly, exactly. And I'm just thinking of what kind of a pressure for Lithuanian to accommodate 5,000 people. Where are they going to put it? And then, if there is going to be any conflict, could be just, few bombs and that's it. Poof. And that's why I don't really understand why Baltic states are so hungry for a conflict when it's really clear that doesn't really matter who wins. One thing is for sure that the Baltics are not going to win, because if the bombs are going to drop, if our
Mm-hmm.
blood in our land, we already lost the war. especially Estonians. Like it's just what, one, two, three bombs and we gone. Like there's nothing left of us. Here, the majority of Estonian spoken people, they live more in south, right? And Nursipalu, this is the southern military base. Where I am, it's actually about 60 kilometers from that base. So if they want to get rid of that base and blow up that base, basically the whole South Estonia, that the little bit of an Estonia that's being left, and then that's like so simple. The second largest city in South Tartu has 100,000 people, population of 100,000. So to cause damage in Estonia is very, very easy. Estonia right now is in a very vulnerable position, and it seems like our government is just totally blind to the real danger that we have.
Well, I'm just guessing that your government is selected by the European and United States elites in order to facilitate their ambition to destroy Russia. That's what this is all about.
Oh, absolutely. Our Kaja Kallas has, she gets so many awards from Europe and from different organizations. She's just like the poster girl outside of her own country. She's definitely has not received any awards from Estonian public as maybe the award of the most failed prime minister.
Okay. I cannot see who else I have available and who's ready to speak. I can only see Ulla at the moment. So if whoever's doing the text there, if you could split the screen so I can see everybody, I'd very much appreciate it. Now out into the dark. Does anybody else want to make an observation or a comment from wherever you are?
Margus, do you hear?
Alex, greetings. Oh, see you.
Everything is on up to the schedule. Everything is okay. We are just proceeding and with my speech. But before I will take my part to the speech, I would like to have some questions for you, Margus, and for Ulla, because quite interesting was to hear some things. First of all, let's start with ladies first. Let's start with a lady, with Ulla. Ulla, I think that it was a technical issue. Margus was asking you concerning the Estonian culture, Estonian language. Had you felt during Soviet time, 70s, 80s, have you felt or do you know about some cases of discrimination of Estonian language and Estonian culture during the Soviet Union times? Please ask this question. Answer this question.
Well, I was born 1973, so as I mentioned earlier, at that time already was the political pressure or political correctness wasn't as tough. And no, I never felt that Estonian language was ever discriminated. I mean, maybe in South especially, there was not that many Russian-speaking people. So I never felt that I'm Estonian language or culture, actually. I remember participating also the Estonian folk dancing group, where my my grandmother spoke a lot about national traditions, which is mostly related to nature and farming rituals, because originally Estonians are pagans. We don't hug a book, we hug a tree. That's the nature is our god. So no, I actually, because of my grandparents' education and the opportunity to grow up as a child, spend some time in the farm and participate in the farming work, I actually got in a very strong identity of who I am. And that's why I am here today, and that's why I am speaking up. We need to preserve our nationality, our culture, our traditions, and our love for nature and farming. You know, the farming, this is who we are, farmers and fishers.
Okay,
And we should be proud
understood
of
the answer. Because at the moment I'm living in Russia. I'm traveling quite much, and keeping the fact that it was the Soviet Union territory, the Soviet United country. I was very surprised how many heroes of Estonian fairy tales, national fairy tales, are being well known in Russian. And then when I'm meeting the people in Russia, in Sochi, in Saint Petersburg, in Eastern Turkey, in southwest of Russia, people are speaking to me, reminding the Estonian national heroes of Estonian fairy tales. It was shocking for me that they are speaking. They are describing me, the Mufta Mukhavaya Barada, and all sorts of stuff. Estonian writers and Estonian people who were writing in the Estonian Times. The whole United Nation, the whole United Territory, USSR territory, was reading them, and was speaking about discussing, and the children of that enormous big state of USSR were studying in the schools, the heroes of fairy tales. Okay,
you know.
and the next question, the last one maybe for you at the moment. What do you think? At the moment we are facing the situation when the Russian speaking population of Estonia is being discriminated very, very toughly. I would say even oftenly, maybe. The government had destroyed the Russian schools, universities, and Russian-speaking language in the universities and in education, Russian-speaking education, I would say that. And of course, it is a very, very big, I would say, very tough step to ruin the nationality, to ruin the identity of Russians living in Estonia. And it shows the whole world already in public how big is this discrimination of Russian-speaking people at the moment, and how big is the artificially made conflict between Russians and Estonians to ruin more and more, to provocate more and more, escalate the situation between the people. And you are ethical Estonians, and that's why member of our party, and that's why, of course, it was very useful for the people who are sitting at the moment in the conference and who will watch the records of the conference. We are recording it for the audience, for the European audience. It will be very, very useful for them to hear and to see the logic and reality and mentality of Estonian, ethical Estonian person living in Estonia, and struggling with me for the reasonable life in Estonia. What do you think? What should we do with the discrimination, and what do you think? Why discrimination takes part in Estonia at the moment?
The discrimination issue is definitely a problem, because our government uses very Russophobic language, condemning not only a Russian government, however, it's also condemning cultural and sports relationships between, two cultures, which is already gone way beyond in a reasonable rejection of your enemy, so-called. So this is, and considering the fact that we already have altogether 5 political prisoners, and 2 of them are from our organization, that I don't know, maybe I'm going to get arrested tomorrow because I participated in this, conference. So you never know anymore, really, what can you say or what can be turned against you. We live in this horrible time where promoting peace is crime, you know, which is just really like a utopia book. And I don't really know how that can be fixed. And that's why, we are talking openly and participating these international forums to put the word out there to international community that what's going on in Estonia is not okay. That our government is very corrupt. I mean, every government is corrupt, but our government is so corrupt. And because we are such a small nation, it hurts us very fast and very deeply. And we are going to need perhaps some international humanitarian observers or investigations. Why these people right now have been arrested. A peace-loving civilians have been arrested for nothing, just to psychologically terrorize and use the scare tactics. I have been already, I would say, terrorized by our capo for, the security department. They follow my phone when I was driving on the bus with 8 more people, our comrades. We were going from Tartu to Tallinn. We rented a bus, and that bus was stopped by a police escort. Our driver, who was a nice gentleman, he was tested, breathalyzer, I guess. And then I was particularly asked to come out of the car because they had a hint that I'm under the influence of narcotics. So they asked me to come out of the bus, asked for my ID. And so I was standing there in all of the streets while they were doing the background check of my ID. And I was like asking for what I'm supposed to do now, blow to somewhere or do some squats, or would you like to look for the car? And I said, it's just so seen through that they just wanted us to stop or make delays getting there. However, because I was not driving, they had really no rights to check anything. I mean, the lady was staring at my pupils, trying to find some residue somehow. And so basically, the point was that they knew exactly where I was. And because I am kind of a loudspeaker on the social media, they have been trying to avoid me to, participate in that particular meeting. And just the fact that they knew exactly in what car I was, and they were not able to, they kind of tried to send a quiet, threat or warning that we see you and we can do whatever we want. So I can say that I have been personally harassed by our government just because I belong to this organization that believes in peace and financial stability, that believes in getting along with its neighbors, that believes that the Estonians don't have to have an opinion about every single world event. We should know who we are as a nation and where we stand geopolitically. And instead of opening our mouth every time and barking in a wrong direction, maybe we should start cultivating better manners in a international political stage, and perhaps invest, instead of guns, invest more in diplomacy. Maybe, open up some type of a diplomacy college in Estonia and making that the jewel of our country, that we have bright people that want to bring harmony and peace, that we educate them in our country instead of, putting in Estonia up as a war ground. So whoever few hobbits are left there, that they would be killed off as well. Sorry, I get passionate sometimes.
It is quite rare for the Estonians to be so passionate. Usually Estonians are a little bit more calm, but I like the passion of Ulla. I will have some speech today, and I will answer your questions, and Ulla will proceed from our organization up to the end of this. because it is a quite interesting agenda at the moment. Very, very important questions, and we of course have to be up to the end and discuss all the questions need to be discussed, and Ula will be presenting from our organization, our side. But I will proceed, and I will proceed with the questions to Marcus. Marcus, tell me, please, you have quite substantially told us about the propaganda against the Russia, against the European USSR in the Western countries, that including that all Russians are slaves and all sorts of stuff like that. You are
against the USSR. It was against Russia.
At the moment,
you've always been slaves.
I will ask. Don't worry, I will ask the questions. And at the moment, up to my knowledge, you are living in Russia. So can you please tell us what is the reality? What is the reality of the propaganda that you were told in childhood, and how many Russians are really the slaves at the moment to the Putin's regime?
Personally, I feel incredibly much better under Putin's regime than anywhere in the Western world. I have no intention, if I can possibly do it, of crossing the border even into Estonia or Poland or anywhere again in the foreseeable future, because we see what's happening. Freedom of speech is everywhere here. Yes, there are some laws. There are certain things you cannot do and say. You cannot, at the moment, insult or ridicule the Russian army. I think that's fair enough. They're risking their lives for their motherland. I'm not sure, but I'm sure in Great Britain, at the height of the Blitz, you couldn't walk around with some placards saying no to war. Let's negotiate with Hitler. You would have been arrested and sent somewhere too. No, it's, when I first visited the Soviet Union, and the first visit was in 1984, I visited Leningrad 4 times. 3 times it was still communism as such. I had this premonition that one day, because in those days I was a Western guy, I was living in London where I grew up, and I was all in favor of freedom and democracy and free market economies, and I didn't like communism, but I loved Russia. And I had this opportunity, because of contacts, to get behind the Iron Curtain and meet real people here, not just have the in-tourist tours and so on. And I had this premonition that I just knew somehow that one day the situation will be reversed. And it will be these democratic Western countries that become totalitarian, as many writers, such as George Orwell and Huxley, have already predicted, and some of our filmmakers had too, and Russia will be free. But I thought, that's going to be in 400 years' time. I'll tell you, in 1983-84, it was impossible to imagine that the Soviet Union would just disintegrate. Well, in fact, it was dismantled. It was the controlled demolition of the Soviet Union, actually, by the same people who set it up, which is the Western ruling elites. Really and truly, even on the television, the spectrum of political debate and ideas here is much, much wider than anything you're going to hear of what I can see from British, American TV, or of course French TV, because I lived for so long in France and I'm fluent in French. I actually think I have my finger on the button of what people are thinking and feeling in France more than Britain. I'm all for it. Here is freedom and debate, and there is not. That's it.
Understood. No. Okay, let's proceed. Let's proceed to my speech. I will maybe I will not be speaking so long as Ulle, but I think that I would like to present some facts to you as well. I will start with the positive news, which came today at the midnight from New York, from a United Nations organization. Today, Russian resolution of anti-Nazi resolution was officially accepted and declared by the majority decision of General Assembly of Organization of United Nations. In favor of anti-Nazi resolution, which had presented Russia, in favor were voted 118 countries. 180 countries had voted in favor of Russian anti-Nazi resolution of General Assembly of Organization of United Nations. Against this declaration were voting 49 countries. The whole European Union countries were voting against anti-Nazi resolution. Can you imagine that?
Oh.
Including Germany, including Italy, reminding Hitler, Mussolini, and etc. And also Austria voted against anti-Nazi resolution. Sweden voted against anti-Nazi resolution. Moldova and Ukraine. I cannot even imagine how should we comment this situation. Again, according to the different data, starting from 500,000 up to 1 million Ukrainian soldiers are being killed already in this conflict between Ukraine and Russia. 50 million people were killed in the Second World War, during the Second World War. 50 million people. I cannot understand what should be in the mind of the person who is voting against anti-Nazi resolution. And of course, when the USA, Britons are telling us that Russia is being isolated, just look on this quantity, enormous quantity of the countries which had supported the Russian resolution of anti-Nazi from the General Assembly of United Nations organizations. Of course, I think it is quite a big shock for the whole world, knowing this situation. I think that this situation shows very, very much. I would say that this situation shows the process which is being I would say executing at the moment just behind us. We are seeing, we are observing at the moment how rapidly and how, I would say, deeply the world is being changing at the moment. We are seeing the escalation, maximum escalation of the situation in Baltic states. I had called the ethnical Estonian Ülle to our already fifth conference forum today, in order to the audience, to give the audience the possibility to hear what ethnical Estonians are thinking about the situation. And ethnical Estonians in social societies are asking a few quite important questions to themselves. First questions: why do we have to die against Russia? In favor of what? In favor of Kaja Kallas' government, whose father had stolen 10 million euro from the budget from the Central Bank of Estonia. In favor of the family of Kaja Kallas, who is ruining the Estonian economy. In favor of Kaja Kallas' family, who will run away as quick as it is needed when the situation will change after the elections in the United States, when Trump will come to the power, and then when Trump will negotiate and agree with the Russia, definitely. And they are asking more and more and more questions about the sovereignty of Estonia, independence of Estonia, the institutes which are being demolished, the institutes of the sovereignty of the state of Estonia, like their own cryptocurrency, their own national currency, their own banking institutes, their own harbors and infrastructure of the railway and the automobile infrastructure, the budget, which is on every year basis more and more harmful to Estonian economy, which is being accepted with the bigger and bigger minus deficit to the Estonians who are obligated to pay for the native bases which are being built in Estonia and which are being constructed more and more in Estonia near the Russian border to escalate and to make the potential harm for the Russians maximum as much as they can. So they are asking themselves these questions, and of course, at the moment, the situation is being in such a big, let's say, in such a big influence of the secret service of Estonia that it is already dangerous for the people to ask simple questions in public. But we see that the situation is changing. We see that United States has been, let's say, stopping the financing of the war in Ukraine. We see that the United States are changing their, let's say, trends to the East Asian region, which is much more critical for them, for their economy, than Baltic states or Ukraine. Because the economy of the United States and the Bretton Woods system or financial system are not executing, are not working as they should be. They had declared the maximum historical budget of their army, $900 billion USA dollars. It was declared 2 days ago. Of course, they can print the money, they can create the money up to the Bretton Woods system, but even this money, which is being created on the empty place, even this money is not helping the economy of the United States to survive and to earn. The system is not working. That's why United States are obligated to change their strategy, and they are thinking about it. And that's why the chances of Donald Trump to come to the power are being raised recently very much. So according to our opinion, the situation will be changing quite rapidly during next 2 years, and we will face absolutely another reality. If we do look back and see what was going on 2 years ago, we will be shocked how much already changed have been done already. Of course, mostly as a reason of the war conflict between Ukraine and Russia. But it is being changed. The world is being changed. The weapons from European states and from the United States are being demolished in so-called Ukrainian force attacks, which had ended quite badly, catastrophically, I would say, for the Ukrainians. And of course, this situation shows us that we will find ourselves in the next different reality, maximum in 2 years, I would say, time period. If you don't mind, my colleagues, I would kindly I will kindly answer your questions, and you will proceed. Marcus.
Over to me. Okay. Well, one question to you and everybody is, it seems that there is debate now in the American elite as whether they should continue to fund Ukraine or not. Do you really think that they're going to stop? I understand by some of the elites who are not part of this neocon cult or sect are beginning to see, they can see Ukraine as another Vietnam or Afghanistan, that the West, shucks, didn't work out. Let's pull back and come back again in 10, 20 years. I think for the neocons, this is a religious war. They must destroy Russia at all costs. And I think they will do anything to make sure that somehow, either intervening directly or I just don't see them stopping. I don't see them stopping while they're still walking, while they're still talking, seeing. I don't see it happening. I'd love to see it happen tomorrow. Then we could actually get some peace, stop the killing quite quickly, I think, and bolster Russia's security, which I have to say quite bluntly is my number one interest. My own country, France, Baltic states, as I've said, they've given up to a large extent their right to demand anything now.
I would say I would answer your questions using the words of the famous German magazine Bild.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very, I would say, exactly written there on the following phrase, the following conclusion. The war in Ukraine was the most big disaster for the Biden's government during last few decades.
Mm-hmm.
Created in their minds their own reality. They had invested 255 billion of American dollars to reinvest actually this money to the economy of the United States. It doesn't work properly, and the situation on the war field had not changed.
Mm-hmm.
In opposite, at the moment, Russians are being attacking, moving forward, and there is, I think that there is no one person left in the world that does not understand that Russia will take Kharkov, Russia takes Odessa. She actually had declared already that Odessa is a Russian city.
Sure, which it is.
In fact, it is a Russian.
Yeah, exactly.
City with a Russian popularity.
So it's Kiev, actually.
Yes,
But
and the only question now is the place where Russians are going to stop. The only question at the moment is the place, the moment when, let's say, United States government will press Zelensky or someone who will change Zelensky to start the negotiation with the Russians and to have some compromise on some reasonable border near Kiev or something like that. But we understand that Moldova, Prидnestrovia will be united with Odessa. And of course, it will be the whole united territory, which was called century ago Novorossiya. It is the region with the Russian popularity, Russian-speaking popularity, and mentality, pro-Russian mentality, I would say. Of course, it doesn't mean that the war will stop. Of course, it will be, I would say, the pause for the next steps, for the next maybe level. But for the Baltic states, it means that they will be going automatically for the Russian influence zone. United States will agree or will sign some agreement with Russia, it means that Poland, United States, Poland, Baltic states, I would say South, some part of South Europe and some part of Eastern Europe will be gone to the Russian influence zone. It is economical reason. It is not the reason that the Americans are loving Russians or do not want to do it. It is just the situation which is created by Americans themselves. They are bankrupts. They cannot even theoretically pay their debts to the whole world. The biggest country with the biggest debts are Americans. They had the Bretton Woods system in such an order. Strangely, up to my mind, but they had created themselves the possibility to rob the whole world, with Africa, for example, or the ex-USSR territory and other states as well. And of course, they are fighting for the, I would say, Eastern Asian region. It is critical for them, much more critical. And of course, they cannot fight simultaneously on the different regions of the world. And of course, they are facing the catastrophic situation for them when BRICS are being growing rapidly, and I would say that the most wealthy and developing countries are being already included in BRICS and coming into the BRICS. We are facing absolutely different reality in maximum 2 years' time, and that's why we need the Estonians who do understand it to survive, not in the country, not to escalate the war, just to survive and to keep their country in wealthy economy and in normal relations with the neighbors. That would be my answer, and I'm ready for the next questions as well.
Okay, where do we see the future going with Europe? Because the European leaders actually seem rather worried about this American wavering about support for Ukraine now. They're panicking because also totally addicted to this idea of destroying Russia and using Ukraine to do so. They have never had a weapon, which is what Ukraine basically is. It was conceived as a weapon for no other purpose than to destroy the Russian Empire. And then again, the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union, especially after the Second World War, more or less became the Russian Empire again with a red flag on top, and started making its own industries and becoming independent. In the 20s and 30s, it was not independent. It was run by Rockefellers and so on and so forth. It's a very, in the English language, it's interesting to say, people always talk about, here in Russia, it's an absolute kind of running debate all the time, people arguing about this. They talk about the Soviet Union. Well, there was no the Soviet Union. It existed for 71 years, but there were absolutely radically different periods in its history, and great successes and massive failures and massive catastrophes happened in that 70 years. So let me not lose track here. But yeah, the European elites, they don't seem to be, they seem to think that they can even carry on without America. They're panicking now that a Trump victory might cut off the tap for Ukraine. I don't know if it will. Trump is slightly better maybe than the Biden, but the Biden administration will probably go down in history as one of the worst administrations the United States has ever had since its founding.
I would answer your question as following. At the moment, money and economy decides everything. The United States had guaranteed to themselves that they are they had connected the economy of the Western Europe to the economy of the United States by explosion the North gas pipe. It means that Europe during next maybe 10 or 15 years buy the expensive energy from United States, and it will be connected, physically connected by this supplyment of gas and energy to the Great Britain and United States. It means that I would say the competitive advantage of Europe, of the European industry, had been ruined, actually. And the Europe will be put in the situation when they have to buy. They will buy, they will buy, they will buy, they will use. They are closing the most great factories, and they are relocating them to China and to United States. It is a very, very big catastrophe for European industry. The more they will be relocated, the more services and commodities that they will be obligated to buy. Is the first point. Second point concerns the Baltic states and Scandinavia. Unfortunately, we do not have the Lena today with us. Her passion and emotional speeches are very, I would say, top level speeches. But I would read that her words today, that Finland had signed the defensive agreement with the United States, had officially became the member of NATO, and had put the situation, the Mutual Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States and the DCA. It means that it is the intentional escalation of the theoretical future conflict with Russia. So now they had to put the situation themselves in such a situation that they will be the part of the object of agreement between Russia and the United States in the next 3 or 2 years. I cannot see the situation, even theoretically, when Finland will be left to the influence zone of United States, because the Russians will never agree that St. Petersburg, the second important city of Russia, will be not defended at the territory and I would say global defense against possible attack in the future. That's why Baltic states and Finland is not the object of any trading between Russia and the United States. It will be just as a fact automatically included in the zone under influence of Russia.
This is what I think.
Will these states survive as the independent states? That is the most big question at the moment, the most important question. And that is the point which is being demolished at the moment, by Kaja Kallas and by the governments who are provoking the war against Russia. If they will succeed with that, we will not have any independence, any sovereignty, any state in the future, unfortunately for the Estonians. Our party, let's say, people, comrades, are fighting for the normal situation, normal changing of the world, which will keep the sovereignty and independence of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Finland as a good, normal, reasonable neighbors with the biggest state in the world. Biggest state in the world. How fool must be the person to provocate the war against Russia, looking every day on the everyday basis from looking the videos from the war, killing the Ukrainian soldiers. in Ukraine. Drone, FPV, drone, rockets and bombs and all sorts of stuff like that. Every day they are killing Ukrainian soldiers. How fool must be the person to follow the same way, to make the same mistakes as Ukrainians have done, to go into the war with Russia, with the biggest state in the world. How fool must be the person? Unfortunately, Estonians have such a person, are having such a person as a prime minister over their own state, who is clearing that she's standing near the border and she's observing St. Petersburg just to analyze the aims of the future rockets to the St. Petersburg. I do not even have, I don't have words even to describe such a stupidity of the person who is telling such a things.
Well, as both you and Ulla have said, it seems Estonian people are at least turning to some extent against her, but the United States seems determined to keep her in place because she's fulfilling that's what Estonia is for, as far as the United States are concerned. They don't, ordinary people, they know nothing about Estonia or the Estonian language. The government doesn't give a damn about it. It's just a pawn, it's just a little stepping stone in their plan to make war on Russia and destroy and dismember her into, is it 8 or 9? Maybe there are various plans, different maps. We've all seen the maps of these independent republics that will be here, all controlled by the West, with the natural resources controlled by the West, and of course with the religion destroyed too, which is number one thing. It just seems to me that, you know, I'm still flabbergasted, really. It's hard to believe the way Europe, that we thought was built on 2,000 years of civilization, has en masse, more or less, except for some brave individuals in every country, just collapsed. Complete moral, intellectual collapse. More even than United States or Australia, they've got their own problems, and all their governments are, of course, total puppets in this world sect, this cult. You know? But the populations there were always different. Most of these countries are, after all, built on the bodies of dead Aborigines or dead Indians and so on. Europe was, and people here in Russia looked up to Europe as a civilization, you know, as a great literature, great music. A lot of science was invented there and came into Russia from, but total collapse.
Marcus, if I can jump in regarding Europe. In my opinion, we need a decolonization of Europe, because Europe is not independent. In Germany, we have tens of thousands US soldiers. We have US special forces in Italy. We have nuclear bombs in Turkey. They influence everywhere. In Bosnia, basically it's colonial state, Kosovo. So if Europe would be independent, there would be a change. And now when we look what is happening in Europe, regarding will Trump come or not, the people is resisting. So we can see some change. Regarding also Ukraine, a few days ago, The Spectator, which is a very good British magazine and respected, wrote that Europe is tired from Ukraine war, that Ukraine should give the land to Russia, the land that now Russia controls, and that we have a peace. So the main question is what Russia will decide. Will Russia decide to make some peace, or will go for more territories? Like Oleg mentioned, like Putin stated that Odessa is Russian city, that Russia defeated Turkey and Odessa. So that is the main thing. Just one thing regarding Nazis and Russia's resolutions. In my opinion, I don't know why Russia is putting so big pressure regarding that. In Ukraine, Israel told there is no Nazis. I know there is in Western Ukraine, but why Russia would not say, okay, we are against Russophobia and not Nazis? The West is against it. Israel said there is no Nazis. When we look Europe, we don't have Nazis. So much migration in Europe. We have so much rape of white women. You are from England, if I'm correct. We have thousands of English white women that was raped by migrants, and the police in England did nothing. They covered up, and speak that they are democratic country, that in England we have rule of law and so on and so on, and we don't have it. We don't have it. So in my opinion, Russian foreign policy should strive to Russophobia, to fight against Russophobia in United Nations and in soft power by media, and put Nazis aside. Also, one important thing, when we look Europe, I will not say pro-Nazi party, no, but right-wing party. Let's say Germany, AfD, it's pro-Russian. In Croatia, in Bosnia, pro-Croat forces, the main pro-Russian forces are, let's say, right-wing forces. Similarly in Austria. Now we have in Italy also. So the right-wing forces in Europe are pro-Russians. They are not pro-Nazi, but they are pro-right. So Russian policy against Nazism, it's counterproductive. I think Russia should change that. To speak about problems of Russophobia, which is so big in Europe and United States, and to do something about it. And regarding Baltics, yeah, there is a big problems. I mean, there is a big pressure on Russians. In Estonia, there is 22% of Russians, Latvia 24%. But there is also other questions, like what Russian politicians in Baltic countries are doing to change things. Maybe we should talk with them. Maybe they should change politics. Maybe Russia's soft power in the Balkans should be better and should be functioning on the other way. I know there is big pressure on Russians, but in Montenegro we have similar things. I'm ethnic Serb from Montenegro. Around 35% of Montenegrins, around 35% of population of Montenegro are Serbs, and we basically have no rights. So, like, it's prohibited to Serbs to work officially. I mean, the state administration at Montenegro stated that Serbs should not work in police, secret services, diplomacy. U.S. Embassy in Podgorica spoke about that. So when we look at that, we must ask a question: what Serbian politicians are doing in Montenegro? We have politicians that are for 2 decades on power representing Serbs, and their result is zero. They also receive a lot of money from Serbia, and that money disappeared. So when I watch Montenegro, when I watch Baltics, I think we need some change, like in Serbia, to Serbian leader politicians in Montenegro, also in Baltics, just to help them, to give them some advice that they change the politics. That's it.
I would add to your question as well. One moment. It was not only anti-Nazi resolution, it was anti-racism and all sorts of xenophobia. Not only Nazi. Yes, that's why I think that Russophobia is also included in this declaration. But concerning the local politics in the Baltic states, I am local politic in Baltic states, and I'm now obligated to live in Russia because I cannot return back. My partner, with whom we created the party, and with whom we had received so many votes in Estonia for the peace and for the common rights between Russians and Estonians, is now declared that it is very dangerous party to our country, and that's why my partner is being put in the prison, and our since the last week had been put also into the prison and declared that he is a Russian spy. So every person who is speaking about the reasonable things, reasonable relations with the neighbors, with the common rights between Estonians and Russians, are being already declared as an enemies of the state of Estonia, as an enemies of the regime, and as a Russian spy. That's why, unfortunately, we are facing this situation when they have already the total diktat of the regime, and of course, the official media is being righted just according to the rules, not ever even one word of alternative opinion comparing themselves with the social networks.
So can we say that, like in Estonia and other Baltic countries, people or officials who want to protect Russian rights which they should have by constitution, they are under pressure from secret services, for government?
Absolutely, it is already the fact, and they are not only by the pressure, but they are put already into the prison. So they find themselves, everybody who is speaking for the common rights between Latvians and Russians, between Estonians and Russians, and find themselves in the prison. It is already the system. It is already made on a regular basis. We had created, the government of Petersburg had organized the Baltic Forum. Recently, there were almost 200 people from the Baltic states. I was one of the speakers, and we had created the, let's say, non-commercial organization to help the people who are being thrown away from the countries to find themselves in Russia, to find the place for the living, the place for the working, and just to find themselves the possibility to organize their life.
Well, this gentleman, Alan Hansen, was arrested 2 days before he was planning to emigrate or leave to be in Russia. It seems they're getting afraid of, the elites of intellectual and spiritual elites, if you like, of Estonia and other Baltic states will relocate to Russia, where, of course, here they're free to broadcast back to the nation and so on and so forth. I pray that something will happen with him. He'll be released, but we'll have to see. It's the situation's worse.
He was not only put into the prison, but he had sold his apartment. He had called to me that I had sold my apartment. I am moving to Russia. I would like to buy some flat for me in Russia to start my new life. And they had arrested his banking konto.
Okay.
The 190,000 euro, which he had received for the flat, for the apartment. And they had arrested all funds, all the money. And now the family are looking for the helping from the other people just to rent the new flat and to find the new job, because prepared to leave. They had stopped the work in other places when they were working, and they had stopped the agreements there. So now she is looking for the lawyers, for the money to pay for the lawyers, and for the new work, and for the flat to rent the new flat. Can you imagine the situation, the catastrophe she's facing at them? And they had done it specially in such a way that the financial catastrophe must be as crucial as it may be. The special Estonia had done it in just intensively, I would say, in the most awful way, just to show the whole Estonia not even think about selling their flats to move to Russia. Not even think about it. We will ruin your life like that. Not even think that you have a right to speak some alternative opinion. They are showing to the whole world what a disgrace is being taking place at the moment in Estonia and in Latvia. Now they are sending away 2,500 people from Latvia who had not fulfilled the exam on the Latvian language.
Okay.
Old people who were living in USSR time, and they are just sending them away. Old people, 75.
Where are these people going? To Russia or?
Yes, to Russia. Just to the empty place. They do not even have relatives in Russia. They are being just taken away and flown away to Russia. Just nobody cares what they will do there. The scape of the catastrophe taking place at the moment in the Baltic States.
Well, I hope Russia will look after them, but there are, unfortunately, Russia's immigration system is actually one of its Achilles heels. It's not in the interests of the Russian government, people at all. And in general, it can be said that this whole shaboodle was set up by the West, actually, when they were in power here in the 90s. The idea, from the Western point of view of Russia, is to get highly educated, experienced, clever people from Russia to go to the West, not the other way around. And the whole system, even today, is still set up to make it very, very difficult for ex-Soviet citizens who went to the free West, 30 years ago and so on. It's very difficult for them to get back here still. Many Ukrainians thought they could just come here and get Russian nationality. For years, they couldn't. This, and so far there have been some reforms and some changes, but not that much. It's still this anti-Russian kind of system is stuck there. Whereas the West will immediately welcome anyone from here, anyone who decides to go to the West with qualifications, with skills. And above all, if they will propagandize for the West, some artists have done this, and we know, immediately they get everything, citizenship, money, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, Russia is still lagging behind in this. And as Latko, you said, Russian soft power, potentially it's enormous. And historically, at certain times in history, it has been enormous. But also, Russia has not been good at using its soft power, nowhere near as effective as countries like Great Britain or United States, or even empty Canada, which is a kind of cultural desert. But still, many people are going, "Oh, Canada, land of the free, land of clean, fair play." Well, no, it's not. About Ukraine, I just want to say one thing about what Russia will do, or what plans Russia has. I've said it before, and I'll say it again because repetition is a master skill. From Russia's point of view, Ukraine is a place now where small children in kindergarten and then school and then any kind of university or college are being systematically indoctrinated with totally fake history and racial hatred of Russia, everything Russian, and fake versions of Russian history, etc., etc., etc. Russia cannot allow a kind of, in my opinion anyway, it would be very foolish for Russia, having come this far, to allow some rump state where that will continue. And if the West and the United States have anything to do with it, and of course the Nazis who are in power in Ukraine, it will continue unless it's forcibly demolished. And the Ukrainian system, personally, I would prefer to see Ukraine cease to exist. Russia will take back the borders as it was before the First World War. Poland, Romania, and Hungary, above all. The Hungarian minority in this area seem to have remained loyal to Hungary and remained there. So it's very easy for Poland and so on. It's a much more complicated situation. That would be the best solution, I think. It might seem very difficult, but we don't know what Russia will have. And the other thing that's happening, two things are happening at once. Of course, the schismatic, fake Orthodox Church in Ukraine needs to be destroyed. And the Catholics are moving in. They're infiltrating everywhere. This also needs to be stopped. If you don't think the schism or this is very important, ask millions of dead Indians in Latin America, in North America, Aboriginal, all of whom were destroyed in the name of Christianity by fake Christianity. Christians don't do that sort of thing. Orthodox countries never destroyed whole populations, exterminated whole nations, and took them over. Even as Russia moved east into Siberia, there were battles with tribes, and some people resisted this. And Russia never destroyed their languages, never forced them to be Orthodox instead of Buddhist or shaman or Muslim, ever. So this must be stopped in Ukraine. If it's not, then this problem will come back. Just remember, Ukraine is a fake state that exists only. It's been created by the Western powers for the last 150 years, like another fake state that we're probably going to get talking about later.
Margus, thank you very much for the time. Thank you very much for the company. My dear colleagues, thank you very much. I unfortunately have to leave.
Yeah, I think we'll move on to the second.
Insist that this practice, these forums are very, very, very important and useful, and I'm very grateful for the organizing such a forum. My colleague, my member of our party, will continue with you. Just continue and make it as interesting, as passion, as good as it may be. I will just see it in video in future with the audience of Europe. Thank you very much.
Okay, Oleg, thank you very much for excellent contribution.
Well, bye-bye.
Bye. I repeat, whoever's in charge of the tech there in Moscow, could you please try to split my screen and show me who is listening to me? I can only see one person now. I can only see Zlatko. I would love to see who else is there. Do we have Hishami Lechami? Do we have Tiberio Graziani?
Hisham Levisi, yes.
Ah, okay, wonderful. Great to see you again.
Yes.
So,
Hi.
As I say, I can only see one person at a time on my screen. So that makes it rather difficult to understand who is listening to this conversation. Let me just check and read just to introduce this second part. So session 2, we have Ishami Lemisi, Tiberio Graziani, pardon, Lily Ong, Diana De Silva, Komeka Pontier, our old friend, of course, from India, and Batko Slavista Michacic. Okay, so we've talked a lot. Oh, the screen went blank. We've talked really a lot about Baltic states and European situation. Of course, the other great catastrophe in the world right now is the genocide going on in Gaza. I'm personally, as we spoke last time, I'm not an expert, so I obviously have general knowledge about this problem. It's been going on since the foundation of Israel, basically. But I'm very surprised by the amount of resistance of Western populations. Western populations seem to me to have bought the propaganda about Ukraine from their governments quite largely. But with Palestine, they haven't. Lehmi, do you have any understanding as to why? Why are so many British people, so many French people passionately against, want to stop this war, want a ceasefire, where they didn't seem to be that way in Ukraine, which is an equally black and white case as far as I can see?
No, it's we can say that it's clearly different. The war on Gaza is clearly a war of extermination. And we see indirect with media the extermination of Palestinian people in Gaza by the Israeli army. We can see in 2 months, in 2 months, Israel army killed 2 times more civilian than civilians killed in Ukraine between the war between Ukraine and Russia in 2 years. And you see that the population, the average of population is very different, because in Russia and Ukraine, it's maybe 200 millions, and Gaza, it's only 1.7 million. Then we see that the objectives of the war in Gaza, it's not a political objective. Objective is extermination. That Israeli army do all what is possible to eliminate the maximum of Palestinians. Now it's absolutely clear just if we are dishonest, you continue to talk an idea of Israeli possibility to protect them, and I don't know what is this kind of propaganda. But if we see the speeches of Israeli ministry, if we see the strategic documents of the Israeli army and intelligence, it's absolutely clear that there is a project of extermination of Palestinian people. When I say extermination, if we use the word in French, extermination, it's not elimination. It's go out, not stay on this place by killing or by other ways. Now they are destroying all infrastructure in Gaza. It means that it will be impossible for Palestinians to stay, to continue to live in Gaza. And why the people is so mobilized now in France, for example, or in Great Britain, United Kingdom in general, it's because there is a collapse of the narrative. You have Western countries with a moral speech, human law, human rights, etc. And the reality, we see the difference. You see, for example, what is existing now in Russia with an incredible number of sanctions against Russia for a war, like a lot of other different wars. But for Israel, all is possible. They are able to kill babies, to kill children, to kill women, to destroy all a territory without any sanction. It's something absolutely incredible. You see in the Security Council.
For example, that Israeli athletes should be banned from the Olympics, or they shouldn't have their flag. Just one example.
I don't understand. Sorry, I don't.
No one is suggesting that Israeli athletes should be banned from the Olympic Games.
Yes, no. For example, but what is doing Israel? It's much more bloody, much more criminal than what is existing in other conflicts. There is no example in all the world this level of violation of humanitarian law in all the world, in any conflict. It's absolutely unique. You have 100 journalists killed by Israeli army. You have maybe like 100 person who works for United Nations killed by Israeli army. You have French diplomats killed 2 days ago by Israeli army in Gaza, and French government told nothing. No reaction. It's something absolutely incredible. We have no example of this kind of situation. I'm just describing. It's not question of I support or I don't. We are only on description.
So in this matter, for whatever populations seem to have woken up to the truth, even though the government is not reporting on this. Can I ask you, are you in France now, or are you somewhere else in?
Yes.
What is the French television showing? I don't see it from here anymore.
Only propaganda. Now, for example, I can tell you that the Israeli medias are more free than the French medias.
Okay.
When I go to see, for example, some Israeli channels, talking on massacre of Israeli by Israeli army. We know now that the 7th October, the Israeli army killed a lot of Israelis by helicopters. You know that. Now it's a big scandal in Israel. There are a lot of mobilization of people against the government of Netanyahu, and they begin in Israel. They begin to talk, to say. I'm sorry for my English. Then what happened? was like false flag. And if you read the Israeli newspaper on internet, you have a lot of hypotheses like that. And when we see, for example, the French media, there is absolutely nothing. The same narrative, the same scenario, poor Israeli state who protect their country. It's absolutely silly. And there is now a big, really a big divorce between medias and population.
Okay. Out of this tragedy, maybe that's something positive, because in Great Britain it's the same propaganda.
Yes.
100%. As I say, the British people seem not to have seen through the Ukraine propaganda.
Yes.
There were massive British protests against COVID restrictions. Those who had understood that this is a grab, a way to imprison people in their own homes and impose digital ID cards through for medical reasons. There were more than 1 million marching in London, which is pretty amazing. And now we see the same thing, that people are not buying this propaganda somehow. So if they stop buying it about Palestine, maybe they'll stop buying it about everything else as well, about Ukraine and Russia, about China and Taiwan, and so on and so forth.
Yes, yes.
The Russia's position and many other countries in the world are that this conflict should be stopped by going back to an agreement that was reached in the United Nations in 1967, I think, which proposes a two-state solution with East Jerusalem being the capital of Palestine and West Jerusalem being Israeli. I've got it right, yeah?
Yes.
So the problem with this, it seems to me, as far as the Zionists are concerned, that if that happens, they can't destroy the mosque and build the third temple there. Do you agree with this analysis, or do you?
Yes, there is a part of Israeli religious extremist group, but very important, who have the project to destroy the place of mosque on Jerusalem and Quds.
Which is the third important, significant mosque in the whole of the Islamic world after Mecca.
Yes, it's one of the most important, because in the Islamic tradition, there is the story of elevation of the Prophet Muhammad to the sky, to meet God in a certain way, to meet God and to meet Jesus. And this meeting was happened in the place of the mosque. When the Prophet Muhammad met God and Jesus. It was I can't explain all in English, but just to have a simple idea. Then it's a place very important, and there is a propaganda, Israeli propaganda on the third temple, who never exists in reality. It's a big lie. And they want to destroy the place of mosque for build a new Jewish temple on this place, and it's very dangerous because it's something we can create like a conflict of civilization, like the Samuel Huntington propaganda. Stupid idea of confrontation between civilizations. Totally fake, because if you read history, all wars in general were between countries in the same continent, same religion, same. It's very dangerous. They want to create a confrontation between like Western countries and Islamic world. But now, what is interesting, it's to see, for example, in Gaza, how the Israeli army destroyed one of the oldest church of the Middle East.
Yeah.
And yes, and they destroyed also another church with people inside, and they killed them. It was a woman present, and the world can see the fake of this speech of war of civilization. Or I don't know. That Israeli project is really project of hate against what is not Jewish in general. Because we have to know that it's a national conflict. It's colonialist conflict in reality. There is no place for religious conflict. The medias want to present us the conflict, the Palestinian conflict, like a religious conflict, like Jewish against Muslims. But it's absolutely fake, because Palestinian are maybe 80% of Palestinian are Muslims, but 20% of Palestinian are Christian.
Of course, yeah. And Orthodox Christians too.
Yes, Orthodox Christian in an important part. And you have also a lot of Jewish, oldest group of Jewish against Israel.
Exactly.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you. I have an important meeting, so I need to go. I want to say thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent discussion, and see you next time.
Zlatko, thank you very much for your contribution. See you next time. Thank you very much indeed.
Bye.
Bye. Hello, hello. I see a screen without. I can hear you. I don't see you anymore. Okay.
Yes, yes.
I don't know what the public.
Yes. Then it's not a religious conflict. It's absolutely not a religious conflict. It's like a colonialist conflict. You can see, for example, in United Kingdom, it's very interesting. Not only United Kingdom, more interesting in with Irish people. In Ireland, all Irish people supporting Palestine.
Yeah.
With a big support.
Yes.
You see football playing in a stadium, all supporting and singing on Palestine, because they are imagining like the Palestinians occupied and they want freedom, etc. Then it's absolutely not a religious conflict.
Okay. There are some people believe that, in fact, it's the Western ruling elites themselves, if you analyze where they're going, they have this idea to build this temple too, which is the reason why one after another, relatively strong, relatively prosperous, and with relatively functioning armies around Israel have been taken out one by one. Iraq, attacks on Egypt in the 60s and so on, Lebanon, of course, the attempt to overthrow the government of Syria and destroy Syria, which thank God failed so far anyway. What do you think about this? To me, it kind of makes sense, because it seems that those who claim that most of the Western ruling elites have another religion, that they don't really talk about.
Okay. You are talking.
Word we don't.
I understand, but it's difficult for me to analyze in this way. I try to stay in analyze of like war elements, economical elements. We can see that there is a lot of elements of eschatology for Jewish, for Christian, also for Muslims, and it's something very particular, because a lot of actors have in mind idea of like escalation for end of the world or something like that, but it's for me it's like ideology for certain category of person. We can say it's true in a part. For example, in USA you have a part of evangelists who believes in idea of we can progress in the road of new kingdom of God, and the end of the world, of time, Armageddon, can be provocated with the immigration of all Jewish in the Holy Land. It's existing. Then they are supporting a lot Israel, but it's difficult to take consequences.
Okay, yes. even in America, it seems there are still more people protesting on the side of Palestine than
Yes.
It's just maybe because these evangelists and whatever, these various forms of Protestantism, Mormons, they're all pro-Israel.
Yes. But there is a big part of American opinion. A big part of the American opinion now is really changing.
Yeah. It seems to me that Western governments just decided the new generation that's come in the last 15 years, we don't care about opinion. Yeah, go in the street, millions of you, bang your tambourine, shout your slogans, carry your flag. We're just going to carry on exactly what we're doing, and we're not changing one iota for you. Get rid of your energy like that. Throw a brick at a policeman.
Yes, but USA now there is a big diplomatic problem for US. If you see the vote of the Security Council the last week, or two weeks ago, I don't know, and we seen only US do a vote against the resolution for ceasefire. It's symbolically for the first power in the world, for the American empire. It's a terrible risk for the future of American domination, because they take the risk to lose all for protect or for supporting, it's not protect, for supporting Israel. And now there is a big dilemma for US. They have to choose or Israel or rest of the world. And it's something very interesting, because now you have actors more influencing, than US in the Middle East. For example, Russia, China, also Iran. They are able to do more than US for the resolution of conflict.
It's especially interesting in the Middle East from the Chinese point of view, because they are not involved. China does not have a Jewish population,
no, they don't have. But Chinese want no problem in the for trade in the roads, commercial roads. You see now the big problem with the Houthi in south of Arabia, in Yemen. They are blocking the circulation of boats, and it's a big problem for economy. And for that now China is obligated to be present. Now we have a lot of Western boats. They want to do the police in south of Arabia, but it's a big political error. But they don't understand, because we have a coalition of Western countries with Norway. Norway is now present. Norway army is present in Red Sea. Maybe we are waiting North Pole or Eskimo. I don't know. It's incredible. Norway now is present in south of Arabia, and it will create a big reject in Saudi Arabia. Now Saudi Arabia is not really engaged. But in the Saudian opinion, now there is a big anger cause this action of Western countries in the region. Then what is the speech now? It's they are killing in Gaza 20,000 civilian people, and there is no action. And cause the Houthi in south of Arabia, they stopped some boats, and maybe I don't know if maybe they killed anyone. Or the Western armies are going to are present military for action. It's incredible.
It's looking like the United States might even make war on Yemen, or do some some military activity there. For me, it's one of the big surprises already happening, this pivot away from the West that the Saudis made. And the tragedy of Gaza now has pushed that, I think, much further. Because in a way, it's possible to say that Saudi Arabia and Israel are kind of Siamese twins. They
Yes.
were both created by the British Empire and the Balfour Declaration out of the dust and rubble of the destroyed Ottoman Empire at the end of World War I in 1917. And Saudi Arabia has been a staunch ally of the West. You know, I remember in 1980s living in London,
Yes.
of Saudis coming from Saudi flag everywhere on Pall Mall and meeting Margaret Thatcher and the Queen and so on and so forth. It seems it's really a genuine shift away. They're going to join BRICS. They've opened relations with their arch enemy, Iran. They've opened diplomatic relations, and Iran is going to join BRICS too.
Yes.
So this looks like a big lose. However, Israel is not stopping.
No, Israel will not stop. For example, it was a moment of ceasefire for a few days, and the real reason of these ceasefires for Israel that the stock of bombs was finished,
running out. Okay.
Yes, running out. They used maybe 30,000 bombs on Gaza.
Wow.
So something absolutely incredible. They used 30,000 bombs against civilian population in Gaza. And now it's not finished. After 2 months, in a little territory like Gaza, the Israeli army is not able to control the territory of Gaza. Now we know that the Israeli army lost around 2,000 soldiers, and they lost like 100 armored vehicles.
Okay. So it's really not nothing. The old days when Israel could just obliterate their massive victories they had in the 60s of last.
No, it's totally different. Now in all the region, all actors understood that Israeli army is failed, is weak.
Yeah,
it's a weak army. It's now if there is a conventional confrontation, for example, between Egypt and Israel, clearly there is no chance for Israel in conventional war. Absolutely no chance. No chance with Egypt, no chance with Turkey, no chance with Iran. Then I think that we will see a lot of change in the months to come.
I want to put forward one theory I have as well, because as you know, my main source of interest is the position of Russia in the world and Russia's relations with the world. I'm sure that the Western elites, and Israelis, of course, part of this Western elite clique, they thought one advantage among many others, which are on the ground there in the Middle East, another advantage of starting this war and this genocide in Gaza is to destabilize Russia itself. And about a month ago, or a bit more already, we had this kind of strange provocation where a flight from Tel Aviv landed in Dagestan. I forget the name of the capital. I don't know whether that's a regular flight, whether that's going from Tel Aviv to that particular city. It's quite strange because this is a Muslim area of Russia. And there were, a Telegram channel managed to whip up a couple of hundred young kids to go and search for Jews on the plane. This clearly, there is a potential here for this conflict to destabilize Russia and get Russian Jews and Russian Muslims fighting each other and get other Russians on one side or the other. This hasn't happened because the government's wised up to these kind of tricks. After Maidan was the last straw, they finally got it together. But let's put it bluntly, there are no demonstrations here, either pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. There are no opinion polls, as far as I'm aware. People have commented, it's strange that Russia doesn't make opinion polls about what the public think, because I think they don't want to create some tension between the massive amount of Russian people. The majority religion is Orthodox Christianity, obviously. The second religion is Islam, and the third is Judaism. There are a lot of
it's not Buddhism. No.
Yeah. And a lot of them, of course, have ties to Israel. They have family there, so on and so forth. There was a plethora of friends I saw on Facebook and for Contactia who in the first days put, I stand with Israel. Nobody's putting that anymore. Not one Russian person I see for the last couple of months has put that. But in the beginning there were. It's interesting. Yeah, I think this attempts to destabilize the internal situation in Russia using this conflict are being gently kind of stopped. But it has the potential to do this for sure. And I'm sure this is not lost on the Western ruling elites either. At the time they started seriously winning the war in Ukraine without committing the massive army that Russia has built up. At the moment, they're fighting more or less with the same amount of army they always had for the last year and a half, with rotation and so on, of course. But there's a massive Russian army is being built and trained, and far more equipment and tanks are just waiting to do something in Ukraine. And the moment to start this conflict, they're desperate now. The West is desperate to destabilize Russia any way it can possibly find. And this particular conflict could do that in theory, because, as I say, a lot of Jewish people here are pro-Israel. And I think the majority of the population here are pro-Palestine. The television is showing both sides all the time. On the news here, you get the Israeli spokesman, and then you get the people in Gaza saying, look, they've killed my family, they've blown up my house. Yes. My baby dead, and so people here are seeing what's going on and hearing both sides of the argument in a fairly objective kind of way, I would say.
And what is the question, or if there is a question?
Question. Sometimes I just put my own theory. My own opinion, and just to throw that in, because maybe people not living in Russia or who are not committed to are not aware of this. There is the potential for destabilization due to this conflict here, especially if something happens like Israel begins to look like it might or might cease to exist. Personally, I think the West would rather blow up the whole world than let that happen. But I think the West would rather blow up the whole world than let Ukraine be completely taken over by Russia too, actually.
Yes, but if we talk on a question of sensitivity of the Muslim population in Russia, like you told that Russia is there's a big part of Muslim in Russia. It is historically, if we go in the past.
Muslims, yeah, these are not migrants or immigrants.
It's not. No, they are not migrants. If you read history, it was the kingdom of Muslim of Volga before Orthodox. Yes, and in a moment in the beginning of Russian kingdom, it was a question to be Muslim, Jewish, or Christian.
Yeah,
and it was the first choice of Russia. It was to convert to Islam, and after they decided to change, cause if conversion to Islam, it was problem of alcohol. And they decide to convert in Christianity. It was in the Middle Age. Then the presence of Muslim in Russia is very old, ancient, and it's totally different than England, for example, or France or Germany. Also, if in the south of France in Middle Age it was present some Muslim territories in south of France. But what is interesting to see that the position of the Russian leadership, it's a position who are like the same of Muslim Russian population.
Yeah.
For a Muslim in a Russian citizen of Russia who is Muslim, he feel that he is in the same position of the Russian leadership. There is no difference in reality, no big difference. Maybe for the leadership, they have also relation with Israel. They have also relation, diplomatic, yes, relation with Israel, and they have to do some mediation or to find a just position. But on the question of rights for Palestinians to have a state, there is no problem. It's a position is equilibrate. Yes, we can say like that. And in Western countries, it's totally different. When we see in Great Britain, for example, the position of the government, it's absolutely silly. Like they are doing. Yes, it's a policy who can really create a situation of civil conflict, civilian conflict, because they are creating a big frustration in a part of the population. Like the opinion of English citizen is not existing.
Here in Russia, this is not happening. And I think because it's kind of slightly controlled. What I can say for sure is when I started living here 20 years ago, Islamophobia was quite common.
Yes.
And racism against Asians and African people was also quite common. And over the last 20 years, it has pretty much, I would say, disappeared. This is one of the great successes of Vladimir Putin and the government. Without
you see in the last.
That's one without making any kind of big show of it, like in the West. So I grew up in Britain, with these anti-racist league. But in theory, it's all great. But I understood somewhere it's kind of fake. It's for show. And now we see the real colours of Europe as regards everywhere. As regards
you can see the last visit of Vladimir Putin, the President Putin, in Dagestan. It was really popular. And maybe the most important popularity of Putin, I think it's in the Caucasus now. In Russia.
Really, there is no problem now between Islam and Christian Russians, and as far as I'm aware, really Jewish Russians too. But Israel could be the problem, but so far it's not. But we're not having demonstrations here, and there are not opinion polls, and so this is probably for the best. We're kind of need to move on, I think, to include Africa, because amazing things have happened in Africa, especially the ex-French colonies in the last year. This year has been one of the most spectacular turnarounds, I think. We have some African guests. I know I have their names written down, but I don't see anybody. I only see the person I'm speaking to. But what I would say is what's happened in Niger is a quite amazing turnaround, really. This coup to get rid of the French puppet. French puppet means Western, US, and so on as well. And immediately the reaction from Macron, of course, was, send the Air Force, bomb them, restore. Couldn't do it. Okay, we're going to get other African states who are still with pro-Western governments. They're going to invade. It was almost beginning to start. I forget what they call that organization. Couldn't do it. Now France has definitively lost Niger, it seems to me, totally. And its massive mineral wealth. And just maybe in 10 years, 20 years' time, most Nigerians will have access to electricity.
But now you know that there is a project of central nuclear center in Burkina Faso.
Okay.
It's a Russian project with Rosatom. And this nuclear central will produce electricity not only for Burkina Faso, also for Niger, because there is a project of new federation between Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali.
Okay.
And Russia will play a central yes, joke, play in, for security of this new federation.
Yeah, I would very much like to. I know we have some African guests, but I can't see you. But I know you're there. We have some people from Mali and somebody from Zimbabwe, I think. Would any of you like to join in? Would you like to say something here?
Yes, we hear Mr. Jabati, Dr. Jabati.
Great to see you. Are you speaking to us from Mali?
Yeah, from the city center. Called the Cité du Niger.
Okay. So how do you feel about the changes which are happening in your part of the world? And do you think that African living standards will rise because of this?
Because of the so-called New World Order or the geopolitical...
Because of the de-Westernization that Mali and then Burkina Faso and now in spectacular fashion anyway, Niger has broken free, as far as I understand, from the French yoke, which was particularly officious.
Yes, hello to my colleague, to you, and thank you to the organizers. It's a great occasion for us to get our opinion to you there in Europe.
Yeah, please.
Myself, I lived in Russia for 37 years, and but I traveled and lived in the US, in China, in many countries, in Australia. So I have known much the Western world. That's the reason why I am next to my government. It's like an official counselor. Here in Mali and in Africa, I'm called the Russian because I was one of the first men to convince our governing leaders to choose for Russia. It's not just because of my study there, but as someone who has been to the political schools in Europe and who has had a chance in Europe to work, I understood much of those things that European leaders usually keep secrets. Usually, the whole world knows that all the time Europe is helping Africa. Whatever they do here, they say, this for helping Africa, for Africa. There are hungry children in Somalia, in Ethiopia. But I will tell you today, as to my colleagues, none of these used to be true. And very often I used to have conferences in France, in Switzerland, and at the start of the 2000s, many of my colleagues were shocked when I would tell them that it's not Europe that supports us, that feeds us, but we feed you. Literally. Yes, we feed the Western world. The Western Europe is but European citizens do not know about that. And when you say it surprises them, the reason why, I very often used to have a conversation with your officials here, I mean ambassadors and so on. I said, now in France, the leading elites tried to put the thing as if there is some anti-France policy in our countries or anti-Western policy in our countries or some preference for Russia. No, not at all. The thing is that we have been first enslaved by the West, then colonialized by the West. Now the new so-called globalism. We have always been victim of these, insensitive Western leaders. Yes. Once again, I am telling this without no emotion, but I'm telling this as a descendant of those who have been always at the end of history and intentionally. I will give you two examples for you to understand the situation now here in Africa. Because Mali was the first country to say no to Western mode of governing, of stealing, of how to say, raping our countries, literally. And I was the first vocal voice for 9 months before I convinced our president and other leaders to cut short with the West and to choose Russia. And today, Mali in Africa is considered as the pioneer. And what the West didn't want to do in our country is not because they could not do, but for 11 years, the jihadist thing here in our country, I want to be honest with you, is something brought in by the West. It's like your colleague Naomi Klein used to say, the theory
this
of
is
chaos.
A very old trick. I now understand it. When I was younger, I didn't understand it.
Okay. But in those how to say sold out colleagues of yours who are here representing different channels in those countries, I don't want to make them any pub. They present this as if those jihadists had parachuted from the Mars and now they are coming to help us. No. These are pyroman pompiers. These are people who set the fire and they pretend to be those who want to extinguish it. This is why for 11 years, every day, we would say that yesterday was better than today. But just in 1.5 years that Russia has been here, we have almost come to almost control those 2/3 of our country that we had lost to those jihadists. Because those jihadists were furnished by Westerners. Yes, I say it and I assume what I'm saying. And still we have our demand in the United Nations asking for them to present our proof that France has been furnishing these unhuman people for all this time, but UN is not giving out the red, the possibility to present our proofs to the whole world. It's not an accusation like just for the sake of accusation. So from the very start, I'm here listening to my colleagues, and I didn't have the chance to put them some questions that I was very keen to do. It's as if the case of Estonia, the case in Palestine, I wanted to ask, it's like a kind of rhetoric question. There's a beautiful European Union. There's an angelic European Union. Where are they looking at what is happening in Gaza, looking at what is happening in Estonia? As I have already told you, I have lived in Russia. We arrived in Russia together with Gorbachev at the same year. You understand? It was the same rhetoric, the same accusation that the West was having for Russia. You know, you know, but aren't we living the reverse situation here? And where is Europe? This human rights loving Europe, this human rights loving West in general, where are they when we are living the same symptoms that we used to live at the eve of the Second World War? Exactly the same symptoms. Are they afraid? Do they think that they will be spared if there is any, mistake? Because the way we're going now, we are moving to a very dangerous situation in the world because of the double standards. Yes, let's say the truth to each other. Let not that destroy our friendship. Friendship without truthness between yourself, it won't last. This is what we say in Africa. So truth should not be an obstacle to friendship. So to be brief with you, I just want to say that we are fed up with these double standards. We have grown up enough. The West has always taught us that they feed us. And now we are telling them, okay, if you feed us, go home, let us do ourselves. And you won't go home. What's the problem? Eat that bet at home that you won't want to go home. You're telling the world that you're helping us. We say now we don't need your help. Go home and do your business there. You don't want to go. You have already seen this example with Mali. When Barkan say, oh, we will go if you do not, we said, okay, go home. They were surprised. They thought that we'd be afraid because they always were taking the rhetoric that without France, we can make it with the jihadists. Brother, we know that you are part of the problem, not the solution. You are you are in Serbia with those jihadists. And we knew that. As far as they left, the Russian came with few military advices. And for the first time in 11 years, we are in Kidal, the symptomatic city of Kidal, that all the words that follow the Western media would say that would never take. And we took it with ease. And the judges are now on the run, in the high, they don't know where to go. Brothers, this is what is the situation in Africa. Whatever they tell you there in Europe is false. Whenever I look at those main channels, you know, I am of remorse. I said, which world are we living? We don't need any help from the West, and it's not with Africa. I was there in March. I won't hide this. I used to tell to Madame Zakharova, I said, instead of fighting the West in Europe, fight them here. You know what? Because whatever you try to store them there, they come, they took the resources from us here. I want to give you a small example. What is called, maybe you may know it, the franc CFA system. The only colonial money that still exists, on which all the economic power of France is based on. By the way, you can look at the archive. The president of the European Central Bank used to say the year before last that France owe now, as Francophone African country, around 565 billion euro equivalent. Can you imagine? And the annual investment of France in our economy does not sometimes even 3 billion, 1.5, 2. But they take every year from us hundreds of billions. One example for you to understand the CFA. The CFA system is what? Whatever product that we, Francophone countries in the CFA system, that we sell outside of our countries, as soon as we have these dollars, money, or this euro, we should put that amount, total amount, into the France treasury. As soon as we do that, 50% of those money belong to France. Why? Just because we are still slaves, brothers. What they will never tell you there. Another 25% of that money is say fond de roulement. This is the guarantee for France to guarantee the exchange rate of our money. What for? What for? A money that the rate never changes. That means the economy will never move. I speak under the control of economists. And the other 25 left, you have the right to receive 15%, you know, in paper, which is called CFA, that France itself prints in Charmayer in his country there without any control from African. The other 10%, if you want to have, you should write a demand addressed to the France Treasury and justify why you need your money. Brothers. And the whole civilized, so-called civilized world is looking at this, and I never heard any official talking about that. That this is just, you are a parasite. You are stealing us. You are raping us economically. So, you know what? The new world order is something that is inevitable.
Sure.
This new geopolitical basculement is irreversible. The only thing I would advise to Europeans, we are anti-nobody and anti-nothing. Just we want ourselves. We are pro ourselves. This is why those who do not like us think, or those who have been stealing us, who have been raping us, are telling to the people there that we are anti-someone. No, we have no time to be anti someone. We are just pro ourselves, definitely. And we want to appropriate what belongs to us, what belongs to our ancestors. So if they think that we need them, we are telling them. Now I'm speaking in the name of the whole Africa. By the way, I will tell you, we are setting up now. Yeah, we are not opening our plan to our enemies. Nobody's our enemy. But the only thing I want to tell to Westerners, better come and negotiate with us. The force will never succeed in Africa anymore. Why? Because the African population were sleeping before. They were never interested in politics.
Okay.
But believe me, in Mali today, the last time I had a meeting with the prime minister, we all used to study in Russia, he told me, oh, young brother, you have succeeded in Mali this time. I said, what? Because you made all the Malian population geopoliticians. To which I answered to him, this was my final aim. Why? Because we need to wake up the population to they came with Niger. I gave interview to New York Post and CNN. I told them, you know, brother, we are small countries, but never think of coming here and trying to install military force here, because the people are ready to die to the last one. But we want definitely finally to live as human people. You know what? Because with our resources, I speak according to the data given by your Western specialists. Except for Russia, Africa detains 64% of the reserves of global resources, but we are the last in the world. You know what? Because nothing belongs to us in Africa here. And the prosperity of the West has been built on our back, on the resources of Africa, from the slavery. Brothers, they never tell you those truths there. I excuse myself for this emotional intervention, but believe me, that's a great opportunity for us. And not for me, for myself personally, and not for my country, for the whole African countries. One of the speaking voice of which I am today, I have the honor to be. My colleague was just talking about the AAS, the Association of the Sahelian Countries, initiated by my country, Mali, which was the first country to say that whoever military would dare intervene in Niger will find Mali in front of you. Because I don't want to boast about my country, but you know, because of the fact that for the last 11 years we've been in civil war, our army is the most, like French people will say, aguerri now at war. So we don't hesitate before anybody as far as you are coming and face us on our territory, because we have the mastery and the knowledge of our ground. If you want to come to cooperate, you are welcome, brothers. But if you want to colonize, to rape us economically, even literally, brother, you'll face fear resistance. And I don't think that you succeed after all the bad history that we had. So this association, they are very threatened. The West is very threatened. I will give you just in 2 minutes the history of that region. The Liptako Gurma is one of the rare spots of land in the world, which was given its own government without being a country. Why? Because of its richness, because of the resources that it had in its underground. You understand? This is the 3 countries of frontier. This is Niger, Mali, and Burkina. That region is called Liptako Gurma. And this is the most natural union that could exist in Africa. And despite the smallness that you may, at the first impression, think, this is very symbolic for colonizers because they know the history. As soon as this association will succeed, they will lose the whole Africa. This is why they're doing everything now to impede us from getting our objectives in creating this situation. But I will defeat them with the collaboration of Russia and with our determination, not politicians, but even simple population, because believe me, the only way for the West to preserve whatever interest here is to change the approach to the relation with us.
Yes.
Do not come anymore with your arms. Do not come anymore with this egocentrism, with this, you know, I don't know how to call misconsideration or arrogance. You understand?
Yeah.
You know, this global basculement is brought something. I think that the Western reasonable people already understand that the geopolitical changes that we're calling the New World Order is inevitable. We are coming to multiple world where this civilization will not be confronting each other, but they will complement each other. They will complementary, where the world civilization will work in synergy.
Yeah.
You know, this is the only chance for us to live in peace, the only chance for us, because the West is about to accept the New World Order changes, but the only problem that they have, and they have problem to change, is this, how to say, dementia, in thinking that they have right to some entitlements, some special status that differentiate them from the other human being. Let's not mislead ourselves. Those times are over. Believe me, I tell you, as someone who is one of the most informed in African affairs and who was the pioneer in convincing African people and their leaders to change CAP. Why? Because for 500 years, we've been, when I try to schematize this thing, I always say this the same, that for 500 years, we were married with you, Westerners, and we never, ever, one single day, felt ourselves good. And now we have a new partner who has never colonized us, who had no history of colonization, who had no history of raping or stealing us.
Yes.
Why not cooperate with him? As long as we have this choice. So my advice to Westerners before the questions is what? Please change your methods, change your approach to Africa, and you still will have chance.
Yeah.
But if you do not, with the economical power of China today and the geopolitical and military help of Russia, believe me, we are ready for any issue to this situation. But we are anti-nobody, I want to repeat. We are pro ourselves. And for a long time, we have been victim of the situation.
Sure. Can I ask you, what is your attitude to China? Because China has been investing in Russia, in Africa for a long time, as I understand, at least 30 years or more. What's your attitude to China? See this as a positive partner? Some Nigerian people,
China,
yeah, it's good, but they have some buts about Chinese investment in Nigeria, ex-British colony, not Niger. What's your attitude?
Thank you for the question. Not only in Nigeria, but I will add Somalia, Somali, and many other countries like this, where we in Africa, China is our friend today, but with the cooperation with China, we should be very careful. Let's be open with ourselves. Let's be honest with ourselves. But it's not because the Western, I remember Bill Clinton, who used to spend more than a week here going through African countries and saying, oh, do not collaborate with China. They are, deepening you into death and so on. I said, but the USA the most indebted before China. So what are you telling about? We know about it's the modern world. The only thing you could tell us here is we should be very attentive and very careful in the cooperation with China, because now we have a situation in Eritrea where China can give some loan condition to, if you cannot reimburse the loan, you will give your land or something like this. Those are some specific, yes, in Africa. They do this in Africa. That's I know that I have many friends, Chinese friends, even here official, but honestly, this is the face of the cooperation that I don't like, and I like to tell all the African leaders and people, in this sense, we should take the measures, because China as well cannot make it without African resources. It's impossible to keep its position now at the first industry. It's not possible. Given how cheap our resources are, because we are not, we are still sleeping, we are not yet commercial like the West and so on, but it will come with time. So, but today, we don't have much alternative to Chinese investments, given the conditions that they give when you take those things. But we should not take those help or those Chinese loan without a reserve. No, because there are many that are linked with consequences that can be very, very, very dangerous for our sovereignty. Even I would not say not in the far future. Otherwise, today China is the first investor in Africa now, concretely, especially in big infrastructures that Europe would not like to develop. Not that because it does not have the means, but Europe was not interested in developed Africa. This is the truth, brother, I would tell you. Because in Africa that will get developed, the standard of living will fall in every European countries, believe me. This is something that is going to happen, not in the far future, but in the very near future.
Used to having
very near future.
Or stolen resources from Africa. I know France in particular is
not just cheap, not just cheap, brother, but zero. I will give you an example. 1 kilo of Niger uranium, you know for how much France would take? For less than €3.
Wow.
Because they say 7, but when they say they buy it for €7, it's not true. Because in those €7, they would put all investment they have done in getting roads to have access to the site, for transporting it. They will add all this and say that they have given to the Niger government. Otherwise, the true money that the Niger government got from every kilo of uranium is around 3.5, 3.7. But once they bring this to Europe, for how much they sell the same kilo? Around €300.
Yep.
How can you justify this? This is just a small example. Just an example for you. And this is equal for all resources. Mali used to be the third producing country of gold. But ask me, what is 1 gram of gold reserve of Mali, in Mali? 0. No. Where are those golds? In France. Reason why France is the 4th reserve of gold in the world today.
Okay.
Why nobody asks himself this question? And that's equal for every product that you could now enumerate. This is why they are afraid. They are afraid to leave Africa. And I want European Union to understand that we see them well. Now, France is not in good terms with us, and they're sending Germany, because it's been a long time after the First World War that Germany colonies were given to England, to France, to others. And we have a little bit forgotten the wrongdoing of Germany. No, brothers, remember everything. And what I would advise to Germany, because we have no, how to say, misconception toward anybody, please don't repeat the mistake of France. Come, in respect, in the sense of collaboration. We agree with you as you would do with what you call other civilized countries. If the uranium should be bought for 200 euro and you bring to Europe, you buy it for 300, you get 25% profit. I think that's very nice. But don't come here, spoil our environment. 3 euro for cleaning which environment? Uranium, which consequences may stay for hundreds of years, and you know this better than me. So it's like you come and endanger our life. And when we complain about that, you say, oh, those Africans, they're like this, they're like, brother, straight on the synagogues. We have been supporting this for so long, for so much, that enough is enough. We have problem with nobody except for those who do not want to consider us as full human beings. Yes, the question is exactly about that, but because the attitude of front to us is not the attitude of even a human being to a good dressed domestic animals. Excuse me. If I was a Malian who had only lived in Mali, had I lived 37 years in Europe and worked there, believe me, I would not say that, because when I was living there, I was not just working. I'm still living there because my whole family is there. But what I have lived here and seen, awaken me and inspire me to come and transmit to our leaders what they may not know about the West. Because I would tell you, from our so-called independence to today, our leaders have been never those who we have chosen or we have voted for. No, it's not true. All those so-called democracy, Europe, I always tell Africans, if democracy was something that would help Africa, Europe would never allow us to do it. Never, ever.
Well, I think probably
because our success and our development is proportionally contrary to the interest of Europe. And developed Africa, it will be the beginning of the end of Europe. And believe me, this end is not far anymore. Maybe some pro-European nationalists would say, it's some politician. I'm not a politician. I am a civil activist. I am a geopolitician, I am an analyst, I am a counselor, but I'm not a politician. I am not intended to get into politics. I just awakening my country, my civilization, and I really adhere to the idea of Mr. Putin that he explained at the last Valdai discussion club when he said that he would like a new world order where the civilization will not be confronting each other, but where they will work in synergy, in complementarity, where the chance for a country to survive will not depend on its size, but every country, every civilization will have a chance to survive and understand that we are not antagonistic, we are complementary. This is what I would advise to those who still have not understood that this is the only option for the human being, for us to have a chance to perpetrate our existing on Earth.
Well, unfortunately, the Western ruling elites seem to be, as we were talking about earlier, this great reset and their version of the New World Order. They want to take control again over everything, and their own people will become slaves now. If Macron and so on have their way, the French people will become digital slaves, as they were slaves in the 11th, 12th century due to feudalism, which actually didn't exist in Russia at all until Peter the Great introduced it in a few areas. We grew up in this idea that Russia was primitive and backward and they were all slaves. No, the slave mentality is not here. It's in Europe, actually, and to some extent other Anglo-Saxon countries. We're coming towards the end. There are many. I can't see who else is there. I know Come Carpentier has been waiting patiently. Come, quickly, if you're still there, how does all this look from India? I know you are working on France-India relations.
I'm still here, yes.
How is all
Sorry,
this?
please go ahead.
How is all this looking from the Indian perspective? I don't see India really investing in Africa, or maybe I just didn't see it. China, yes. Russia now. Too late, many would say, that Russia should have done this big time in Africa earlier, but they were obsessed with the West still.
They are very active in Africa.
Yeah.
Yes, well, first it was thank because he gave us a very comprehensive and a very provoking review of the situation in Africa, which I have been following. India has had a fairly discreet presence in Africa, but is quite a prominent, discreet, but very important in many African countries, especially East Africa, the English-speaking ones. And there are quite a few major business deals, some of them in cooperation between India and Japan. And of course, it is not comparable to the massive amount of investment that China has conducted as placed in Africa, but India has often acted through the private way, in the private companies, because the Indian government does not operate at that scale generally, except for certain projects connected to telecommunications, health, infrastructure, of the more, you might say, the virtual infrastructure, electronics and all that, where there is a substantial collaboration program that's been going on for a long time and which has been quite successful in certain countries. I think India's traditional connections, the more important ones are with Ethiopia, with Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, of course, South Africa, not only within BRICS, but also because of the old ethnic connection between South Africa and India. And so there is, I think, a greater Indian also penetration in West Africa, which used to be a traditional, French protectorate and still is in many parts. And I think at this point, France is quite favorable to a greater role of India because it is less threatened by the Indian economic activity than it is by China, Russia, or even the United States. So from that perspective, India has, as often the case, been playing a rather mediatory role without getting involved in the geopolitical conflicts to the extent that it can avoid them, and talking mostly about cooperation. And as you know, India played an active role in promoting the African Union's entry into the G20, which is now the G21. And the whole idea is that Africa has to be developed, but on the basis of participation, leading participation by Africans, and for the primary benefit of Africans. Of course, in practice, we all know that this is not always, in fact, not often the case, because any country which does not defend its interest will not find anybody wanting to defend it for them. Everyone has to look after their own interest because the geopolitical scene is a very conflictive one, and where essentially everybody is looking after themselves. But this being said, I think there is a general realization that Africa may now come into its own, and if Africa has been watching with great interest the definite turn that has been taken by certain Saharan African countries.
Yeah.
And not only them, to essentially get away from what you might call the European protectorate and looking for different kinds of cooperation. I have watched the successive visits by Russian delegations like Mr. Bekirov, which have created not only economic and geostrategic cooperation programs, but also cultural and educational ones. I was in Moscow when a protocol was signed for what is called African Underground cooperation program with Russia. So clearly a lot of that is happening, and even bigger programs are now being designed. And I think an invitation to a number of African leaders that has been issued or is just about to be issued by the Russian government. So anyway, clearly the scene is changing. And this sort of anomaly that had persisted in West Africa, where many of those countries were kept in a state of clear subjugation and relative isolation, is changing. And we can see now that certain countries like Gabon and others are voting against the West and against France on certain issues, which was just impossible until a few years ago. And so that in itself, you know, indicates the change in the might say, in the global paradigm. So I do not want to be too long, because I assume that you are trying to complete the program as soon as possible. But this is what
the 3-hour mark, which was this was supposed to be a kind of end of the year 3-hour conference. Whether anyone is going to watch the whole 3 hours, I don't know. But we've had absolutely fascinating and wonderful insights, and I praise everyone, especially those who are speaking in English, not as your native language, as I have it easy here. I can't see who else is there waiting. I know in theory we had a couple of other Africans and some other people, but we're really running out of time. Does anyone want to say something quickly or to jump in with any point about what we've just heard or what we heard from our Malian friend?
Well, if I may,
yeah,
if I may say just quickly a few words, that this was first time for me to participate, and it's actually been really fascinating experience to hear so many different perspectives from the source, you know, to hear about Africa, India, so Russia, Estonia. So this is a really amazing group of people, and I wish everyone luck and sticking together and feeling the faith that the goodness has to win. I mean, it has to. So thank you for everyone.
Ulla, thank you very much indeed. Anybody else?
Just I want to make use of the occasion, Mr. Dr. Jawate from Mali, to greet my colleagues and to wish that such kind of platform we will try to perennize to make it regular. It will be very interesting for us, a good chance for us to, from time to time, to bring in some contradiction into the news arena in Europe, to give you information from the very source, with the possibility to oppose different opinion, different ways of reporting news, especially knowing that news about Africa very usually coming from the West is all bad or nothing. You report something bad about Africa, or you say nothing. And we'd like to bring some changing into this and to relate it to you, the true reality that prevails here in Africa. I want to profit from this to greet all our colleagues and to wish that this meeting will not be the last, and we'll have some chance to have this on a regular basis. Hello from all the Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much for your contribution. It was fantastic. The whole world should see this. Okay, anybody else? Last seconds, last minute. Anyone want to say anything? Okay, so we're going to wrap up this end of year conference. I want to thank everybody for these fantastic contributions. This was really 3 hours has just gone. I can feel my voice a little bit, and maybe you too. But this was fantastic. And I wish you all a happy new year. Whatever holidays are coming, in whatever country you're in, whatever religion you have, happy new year, bon année, Novim Gordon, thank you very much. This is Our Day's News signing off for this year, I think. And we'll be back. We'll be back. Good luck wherever you are in the world. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.